I had matched with her on Tinder 3 weeks earlier. She said her name was Caitlyn, 26, yoga instructor in Bergen County. She had 10 photos. All of them looked real. The conversation had moved fast. Banter the first night, FaceTime the third. Dinner at her place by week 3. I had not driven to a first date in months. I drove. I am Aaron, 31, software engineer for a fintech firm in Hoboken. I had been doing the dating app rotation for about 2 years since my divorce. I had a system, public meetings the first 3 dates, background check via people search on anyone past date 3. Sister got the location share for any meet. The yoga teacher had cleared all of it. The people search returned a clean address in Ridgewood. Her Instagram had 3 years of yoga studio tags. I had texted my sister the address and an estimated time before I left Hoboken. Her apartment was a 3rd-floor walk-up on a quiet street. The buzzer worked. She opened the door barefoot, hair wet. She smelled like clean laundry. She poured me a bourbon. We sat on her couch. The conversation was easy. Honestly, I remember thinking it was the easiest first dinner I had in months. About 40 minutes in, she set down her glass. She said she wanted to ask me something and that she needed me to hear it before I answered. I said, sure. She said it slowly. She said she had a problem with someone in her life. She said she needed that person to stop being a problem, and she said she was willing to pay a lot of money to a man who could make that happen. I had to ask her to repeat it. She did. Same words, same calm tone. I asked her if she was joking. She said she was not. She said she had been thinking about it for over a year. She said her ex-boyfriend was a police officer in a town nearby. She said the officer had a teenage daughter. She said she wanted both of them gone. Thing is, my hand stopped sweating. I went the other direction. I went very still. I want to be careful describing what I did next because the federal agents walked me through it twice. I did not say no. I did not say yes. I asked her how much she was thinking. She said $25,000. I asked her if she had it. She said she had it. I asked her if she had access to the officer's address. She said she did. I asked her if I could think about it for a few days. She said, of course. I asked her if she had asked anyone else this. She said I was the 3rd match she had brought up to her apartment in 6 weeks. The other 2 had said no and left. She said she could tell I would be different. I asked her for the address. She wrote it on a Post-it. I put it in my wallet. I told her I needed to drive home and think about the money. I told her I would text her by Friday. I kissed her at the door. I walked downstairs. I drove 3 blocks. I pulled into a CVS parking lot. I texted my sister. I told her I needed her to call the local FBI field office and read them a number. The FBI agents called me at 6 the next morning. They drove to my apartment. We sat at my kitchen table for 3 hours. They asked me to confirm every detail. The Post-it with the address, the bourbon, the yoga studio tags, the number 25,000. They asked me if I would consent to be wired and meet her again. I said yes. The second meeting was at the same apartment 4 days later. I was wearing a wire. I had a federal agent's number on speed dial under Mom. Caitlyn poured me bourbon again. She walked me through the details again. The officer's shift, his daughter's middle school, the route between them on weekday afternoons. She said she had a gun and a bag in her closet she could give me. She walked to the closet. She showed me the bag. There was a handgun and a box of 9mm rounds. I picked up the bag. I held it. I said I would do it for $30,000. She said okay. She wrote a transfer code on a piece of paper. The agents kicked the door at the words, transfer code. She was arrested in her apartment with the bag, the gun, the rounds, and the transfer code. The officer's ex-boyfriend was notified by FBI agents at his precinct. His daughter was notified at her school by a social worker. The federal prosecutor showed me 2 months later what she had on her laptop. She had a folder labeled with the officer's last name. Inside the folder were 3 years of screenshots of his social media, his daughter's social media, his new girlfriend's social media. She had 3 years of his shift schedule downloaded from a precinct calendar she had photographed during a visit while they had been dating. She had drawn 3 different attack plans on 3 different days. She had matched with 11 men on Tinder in the prior 6 months. She had brought 5 of them to her apartment. She had asked 4 of them what she had asked me. The 4th man had been me. The other 3 had walked away without reporting. She was charged with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder for hire, criminal solicitation, possession of a firearm during commission of a crime, and witness tampering. She was held without bail. The trial was in September. She pleaded out the morning of jury selection. She got 18 years in federal prison, plus 10 years supervised release. The officer's ex-boyfriend transferred precincts. His daughter transferred schools. I had to sit through 3 different federal interview rounds. I had to testify at a grand jury. I had to identify her in court at the plea hearing. I had to sit 10 feet from her while she looked at me without expression. I had to keep my employer aware of court dates for 7 months. I deleted Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge that same week. I did 6 months of therapy. I moved out of Hoboken. The thing I come back to is the 3 men before me who had walked away without calling anyone. 3 more weeks in her apartment. 3 more chances she would have found someone willing.
I had been talking to him on Bumble for 8 months when he asked me to wire him the first payment. He said it was a bridge loan. He said he needed it for a customs hold on equipment in Singapore. He said he was a marine logistics consultant and that the customs hold was costing him $800 a day in storage fees. He said he would pay me back with interest in 3 weeks when his shipment cleared. I sent him $40,000 from my Vanguard rollover. I am Pamela, 54, retired 4th grade teacher in El Cajon, California. I had taken early retirement in 2022 after 30 years in the San Diego Unified District. I had a pension. I had a paid-off house. I had a Vanguard rollover from a 403B worth $470,000. I had a daughter who was a nurse practitioner in Phoenix. I had not dated in 12 years. He had matched me in October. His profile said his name was Daniel Hartwell. 57, marine logistics consultant. Photos in front of a yacht, in front of a Singapore skyline, at a charity dinner in a tuxedo. He told me he traveled for work 8 months a year. He said that was why he wanted to meet a Southern California woman to be his West Coast home base. He said his late wife had died of cancer in 2019. He said he had 2 adult sons in Vancouver. He said he was tired of the road. Honestly, the conversation built slowly. He never asked me for a photo I had not already posted. He never pushed for a video call. He always said he was in a different time zone. He sent me selfies. He sent me photos of his hotel rooms. He sent me photos of his Singaporean dinners. He sent me his itinerary 3 weeks in advance. He told me about his son's wedding plans. He told me about his arthritis. He told me about his Labrador. The $40,000 was the first wire. It was supposed to come back in 3 weeks. It did not come back in 3 weeks. He said there was a second customs issue. He needed $80,000 more. He said the first $40,000 was safe in an escrow account. He sent me a screenshot of the escrow statement. I sent him the $80,000. I want to be honest about my own thinking during this period. I had been a 4th grade teacher for 3 decades. I knew people lied to me. I had a daughter who was a nurse. I had a friend who had been a fraud investigator at Bank of America for 15 years. I had read articles in The Atlantic about romance scams. I had told myself I was too smart for this. I had told my daughter on a phone call that I had met someone wonderful on Bumble. I had not told her how much money was involved. I had not told her about the wires. By February, I had sent him $187,000 across 4 wires. He was supposed to fly to San Diego on the 17th. He did not fly to San Diego on the 17th. He said his shipment had been seized by Indonesian customs and that he needed $40,000 more to bribe the harbor master. I did not send him the $40,000. I called my daughter. I told her everything. She told me to call the FBI. The FBI agent I spoke to was patient. She told me she had handled hundreds of these. She told me Daniel Hartwell was not a marine logistics consultant. She told me Daniel Hartwell was a name on a stolen passport. She told me the photos in the yacht were 10 years old and belonged to a real Australian man who had reported his photos stolen 6 years earlier. She told me the escrow statement was a Photoshop. She told me the IP addresses on his messages traced to a server in Lagos, Nigeria, routed through a residential proxy in Toronto. She told me the federal task force had been tracking the cell that was running him for 18 months, and that my $187,000 had landed across 7 cryptocurrency wallets, then been bridged into a Hong Kong shell account, then withdrawn at 15 different ATMs across Hong Kong over a 36-hour window. She told me the chance of recovery was, in her words, around 4%. I want to be specific about the man they eventually arrested, because I had to identify his voice in a deposition. His real name was Christopher Earl Lloyd. He was a 39-year-old American who had been running this scheme from a rented apartment in Culver City for almost 3 years. He had run it on me from a laptop. He had a folder of 57 women in his Bumble messages. He had wired himself $2,100,000 in total. He pleaded not guilty. The federal prosecutor showed me the discovery binder. There were photographs of his apartment. He had a whiteboard with women's names on it. My name had been on his whiteboard for 11 months. He was convicted of 13 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of engaging in a monetary transaction in property derived from the fraud. He got 16 years in federal prison. The court awarded restitution. I have received $1,200 of my $187,000. The restitution order says I will receive the rest at a rate determined by his prison labor wages over the course of his sentence. The math suggests I will recover under $3,000 total. I had to take a part-time job at a Trader Joe's in El Cajon to pay my property taxes. I am 54. I had retired at 52 with a paid-off house and a rollover and a pension. I have the pension and the house. I do not have the rollover. The thing I come back to is the whiteboard. The man had a whiteboard. He wrote down our names. He took 11 months to take everything I had saved across 30 years. He was sitting in a Culver City apartment in a t-shirt while he did it.
I had been seeing her for 6 months when she suggested we have her decorator come out to the house and update the den. I said yes. The decorator was a man named Anthony. Anthony was at the house for 90 minutes on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at the house with him. She was not at the house. She had taken my Mercedes to a pilot's class in Brentwood. Anthony measured the den. He took photographs. He left. 48 hours later, she broke up with me by text message. 3 weeks after that, I noticed my safe was empty. I am Edmund, 62. Retired Chief Technology Officer of a software company that sold to Oracle in 2018. I live alone in a Spanish-style home in the flats of Beverly Hills, 4 blocks south of Sunset Boulevard. My late wife passed in 2021. My daughter lives in San Francisco. I had not been on a dating app before I downloaded Hinge in March of last year. My daughter set up the profile. She used my actual name. She picked 3 photographs, 2 of which were not flattering. The profile said I was a retired technology executive with a daughter in San Francisco. She had matched me in April. Her name on the app was Mia. She said she was 34. She said she was a model and lifestyle influencer with 70,000 Instagram followers. She said she split her time between Westlake Village and a rental in West Hollywood. Her photographs were professional. Her bio mentioned a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel and a love of older men with good taste in wine. I want to be honest about why I matched with her. I am 62. I had been told by my friends in their early 60s to expect that any woman my own age on the app would be looking for something either casual or final. I had been told by my daughter to keep my mind open. Mia was attractive. Mia was articulate. Mia was professional. Mia did not seem to want my money. Mia drove a Range Rover she owned outright. Mia paid her own restaurant bill on our first date in Beverly Hills. I had checked her Instagram. The follower count was real. The brand deals tagged in her posts were real. The friends in her stories were real. We dated, in earnest, for 6 months. She stayed at the house most weekends. She had a key to the front gate after about 10 weeks. She had a key to the front door after 14. She knew the alarm code by month 4. She knew the combination to my interior safe by month 5, because I had given it to her on the morning of a Vegas trip in case my daughter needed access to my passport. I want to be specific about the safe, because the police asked about it in detail. It was a Browning fireproof, 80 inches tall, built into a closet off my office. Inside the safe at the time of the trip were 3 Patek Philippe watches, 8 Cartier, and Van Cleef pieces from my late wife's jewelry collection. $60,000 in cash that I kept on hand for property reasons, and 17 pages of bearer bonds my father had bought in 1981. Anthony the decorator was at the house in October. She broke up with me 3 days later. I assumed I had gotten the relationship wrong. I assumed she had decided the age gap was too much. I called her twice. She did not answer. I let it go. I noticed the safe was empty on the 7th of November when I went to retrieve the bearer bonds for a meeting with my financial planner. The watches were gone. The jewelry was gone. The cash was gone. The bonds were gone. The interior of the safe had been cleaned. The exterior was untouched. The alarm logs showed no entry in the prior 3 weeks except mine and my housekeeper's. I called the Beverly Hills Police Department. The detective who answered was patient. He listened. He asked me her name. I said Mia. He asked me her last name. I gave him what was on her Hinge profile. He asked me her real last name. I said I had assumed that was her real last name. He asked me if I had verified it through any document. I said no. He asked me if Anthony the decorator had a business card. I said no. He asked me if I had a security camera in the den. I said the cameras were on the exterior only. He told me he would send a unit to the house to take a statement. He told me gently that a detective from the Beverly Hills Financial Crimes Unit had been waiting for a call like mine for 16 months. I want to be specific about her real name because it was in every Los Angeles newspaper 4 months later. Her real name was Adva Levy. She had used the alias Mia Ventura on 3 dating apps over a 3-year period. She had been a Penthouse feature model in 2018. She had built her Instagram brand around lifestyle content that she had largely staged. She had been using Hinge and Bumble and Tinder to identify wealthy older men and younger women, befriend them over a period of months, gain access to their homes, identify high-value targets inside the homes, and have an accomplice named Anthony enter on a pretext to mark and case the spaces. The decorator visit had been the case. 2 professional burglars she had been paying through a Beverly Hills shell company had entered the house on the night of October 30th, between 2 and 3 in the morning, while I had been at a Lakers game with my daughter at the Crypto.com arena. The Los Angeles County District Attorney charged her with 6 felonies: conspiracy to commit residential burglary, grand theft, possession of stolen property, 2 counts of money laundering, 1 count of identity theft. She was held to answer on all 6 charges at the preliminary hearing in March. Anthony, whose real name was Anthony Mendoza, was charged with 3 felonies. 2 professional burglars were arrested in San Bernardino in May, with 7 Patek Philippe watches and a portion of my wife's jewelry in their possession. They flipped on Adva. The DA's office estimates she ran the scheme on 11 victims in 3 years. The total stolen across all 11, including art, watches, jewelry, cash, and bonds, was over $4 million. She faces up to 11 years and 8 months in state prison. I recovered 8 of my late wife's pieces, 2 of the 3 Patek watches, and $41,000 of the $60,000 in cash. The bearer bonds are gone. The 3rd watch is gone. The jewelry that has not been recovered was either melted or sold through online channels Adva had set up. I installed a Mosler vault. I installed interior cameras. I do not date through apps. The thing I come back to is the 10 weeks before I gave her the gate key. She had earned them. Every meal, every gesture, every conversation. None of it had been a coincidence. She had built 10 weeks of evidence that she was safe before she asked me for the smallest possible access. The rest had been a 6-month case.
I do not remember the second drink. I remember the first one. I remember him paying with a black American Express card. I remember him asking the bartender for a top-shelf bourbon with 1 large ice cube and a twist. I remember him toasting to my new job. I do not remember the second drink because the second drink was the one that took my memory away for the next 9 hours. I am Caitlyn, 28, marketing manager at a tech company in the Lodo neighborhood of Denver. I had been on Hinge for almost a year when he matched me in February. His profile said his name was Steven, 47, interventional cardiologist at a private practice in Cherry Creek. 2 photographs in a white coat. One photograph at a Telluride lodge with skis. One photograph with 2 golden retrievers. The Hinge prompts mentioned his collection of jazz vinyl and his preference for early dinners at neighborhood bistros. He had a verified blue checkmark. I want to be honest about the verification. I had been told by friends that the verified checkmark on dating apps meant the person had submitted a video selfie that had been matched to their photographs via facial recognition. I had trusted the verification. I had cross-referenced his name on the Colorado Medical Board website on the morning of our first meet. There was a Stephen Matthews with an active medical license, a board certification in cardiology, a subspecialty in electrophysiology, and an unblemished disciplinary record. I had told my best friend Hannah I was meeting a cardiologist for drinks at the Cooper Lounge in Union Station at 7:30 on a Friday. I had told her I would text her by 10. I had pinned my location to her via Find My Friends. He was waiting at the bar when I arrived. He was tall. He was in a navy blazer. He stood up. He pulled out my stool. He ordered me a glass of Sauvignon Blanc without asking. He said he had taken the liberty. The Sauvignon Blanc was already at the bar when I sat down. It had been poured 90 seconds before I walked in. I drank about half of the Sauvignon Blanc. We talked. He was easy to talk to. He asked me about my new role. He asked me about my undergraduate work. He told me about a patient he had performed an ablation on the prior week. He told me about a cabin in Vail. He suggested a second drink. He ordered me a bourbon mule from a different bartender than the one who had poured the first wine. He set it in front of me. I drank about a third of it. I remember the conversation getting watery somewhere between the third and fourth sip of the bourbon mule. I remember him asking if I was feeling okay. I remember saying, I think I need air. I remember him standing up and offering his arm and saying, let's get you to a quieter spot. I remember walking through the lobby of Union Station. I remember an Uber. I remember a hotel hallway. I do not remember the room. I do not remember the night. I want to be careful describing what I remember next because the detective walked me through it 4 times. I woke up the next morning at 11:15. I was in a hotel room. I was in a bathrobe. There was no man in the room. There was a glass of orange juice on the nightstand. There were 2 ibuprofen next to the orange juice. There was a note on hotel stationery that said, the front desk knows your room is paid through noon. Take your time. Coffee at the lobby is on me. S. There was no Stephen. There was no phone number. There was a clear line of bruising on my left thigh, on my left wrist, and at the back of my neck. My phone had not been charged in 12 hours and had 19 missed texts from Hannah. I called Hannah from the room. She drove to the hotel. She drove me to the Denver Health emergency room. The ER ran a tox screen. The tox screen came back positive for high levels of GHB. The trauma nurse did a rape kit. The kit came back positive for foreign DNA. I gave the Denver police a statement that afternoon. The detective who took the statement was an experienced sex crimes investigator. She listened. She wrote everything down. She asked me to send her the Hinge match. She asked me to send her the bar receipt. She asked me to send her the hotel room number. She left me with her cell phone number. She called me 3 days later. She told me Stephen Matthews was a real cardiologist. She told me Stephen Matthews had been reported on Hinge by 4 other women in the prior 20 months. She told me Stephen Matthews had been reported to the Denver Police Department by 2 other women in the prior 2 years. She told me my rape kit's foreign DNA had matched a sample that another woman had submitted in 2022. She told me I was the 11th woman she knew of. The arrest was in March. The trial was in July. I sat in a courtroom for 2 weeks in August while the district attorney walked the jury through 35 counts of drugging and sexual assault committed against 11 women between 2019 and 2023. I testified for 2 hours. The defense attorney asked me how many drinks I had consumed. I said 2. He asked me if I had been on any medications. I said no. He asked me why I had agreed to a second drink. I said because the cardiologist on the Colorado Medical Board website had offered me one. The jury convicted him on every count. The sentencing was in October. The judge gave him 158 years to life. The judge told him on the record that he would die in prison. The judge looked at the 11 of us in the gallery before he read the sentence. The cardiologist did not look at any of us. He looked at the desk in front of him. I want to be specific about the lawsuit because I am one of the named plaintiffs. In December, 6 of the 11 of us filed a civil suit in California State Court against Match Group, the parent company that owns Hinge and Tinder. The suit alleges that Match Group received reports from at least 4 women on its platform about Stephen Matthews between 2020 and 2023. The suit alleges that Match Group took no action to remove him, suspend him, or warn other users. The suit is ongoing. I have spent 9 months in therapy. I have moved out of the Lodo apartment. I do not drink in public anymore. The thing I come back to is the verified blue checkmark. The checkmark meant that the man's face matched his profile. The checkmark did not mean the man was safe. The checkmark meant nothing about the 4 women in the prior 20 months who had told the platform exactly what he was and had been ignored.